Hey, Regis, I won't go down to the people's names, but
No,
I can do that later with you if you need to, but
no. I think you
there are,
will address it at the appropriate level of detail.
Yep. Yep.
I understand our arborist was going to come back today.
That is what Lydell promised me. Yeah.
Although Lydell said he had to climb that tree, and with the winds, I don't know that I'd want to be
Yeah.
My goodness.
perched 80 feet up in a tree on a windy day.
Well, we ought to document his visits to confirm the due diligence that we did on this.
Yes. Yes. I guess you don't become an arborist if you're, afraid of heights, probably.
I think that's true.
Yeah. It's kind of like being afraid of water and becoming an oceanographer. That would be a bad idea.
Or a scuba diver.
Right. Exactly. Or learn to dive. No.
I'm back.
Short timer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm gonna miss you guys. I'm gonna miss all these meetings.
Yeah, that's right. What will you do with your time?
Libby has got a very long list of
I
things to do.
imagine.
House, yeah.
I don't think you'll be bored.
No, Bob, there's a lot to do. And a lot of golf courses to play, Regis.
Boy, there sure are. There's, I think True Blue is one of my favorite of all time.
Yeah, I love
Certainly top
Caledonia.
5.
Yeah.
Have you counted how many within a 25-mile radius?
Bob, I couldn't even tell you. I mean, Myrtle Beach is 30 minutes away. Charleston is an hour. So
Yeah.
we're right in the middle of the two. And it's amazing for a golf courses right along that ocean.
Wow.
Crazy.
Well, I remember when Myrtle Beach first started to gain prominence as a golf destination. I think they used to advertise like 27 or 33 golf courses. Now it's probably 127.
Oh, I think it's in the hundreds. Yeah.
We've got about a minute to go.
Scott, the club staff did a terrific job last night handling a large crowd.
Good.
Yeah.
I talked to Robert early in the week, and I'm like, just get ready. You have
they
no
did.
idea. You haven't seen this yet.
They handled it very well.
Good. More to come. It's getting windy. It was nice for a while.
The temperature's supposed to drop down again into like the 30s, I think.
Yeah, it's looking less pleasant.
Low of 41 tonight.
Oh, is it? Okay. Well, that's better than it was predicted.
Yeah.
That's March for you.
There you go.
I don't think we got as much rain as what was originally.
No.
No,
Right.
thank goodness.
South. Got a 16-mile-an-hour wind right now.
All right, and it's 65 degrees out there. It's a beautiful day in Big Canoe, and it's 5 o'clock.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. This is our third board meeting for 2021. And we'll begin with Scott's financial report, followed by Phil's sales report. And then we have several items to add to the business section, including a review of the board's actions with the ACC's decision earlier this week regarding metal roofs. And then just a brief highlighting the upcoming census for 2021 for Big Canoe. So Scott, with that, would you like to?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Candace. We can go to the first slide. And just in case anybody doubts whether spring is coming, I saw 2 butterflies today. So there you go. It's real. It's happening. It's good. All right. So are the February results. So the butterflies were a good intro to that. We had a very, very strong financial performance in the month of February. So to start with, let's look at the amenity net income, as we always do. Clubhouse was 33,608 to the good versus the budget. and 44,542 stronger than last February, which is also nice to see. It's the last time probably this year that we'll be able to compare kind of pre-COVID in 2020 to now. So that it's a nice comparison to say, wow, that was all before we knew what COVID was, and we still came out strong on the numbers. So that's really good. Golf had another extremely nice month, 27,641 to the good, and again, basically flat with this time last year before we even knew what COVID was, and we had 27 holes at this time last year. Now we have 18. So that's also pretty good. Just to give you an idea, the golf rounds year to date are 2327 versus a budget of 1611. So that's 44% higher than the budget in the first 2 months. So golf shows no sign of slowing down, and that's probably a US, maybe a North America statement, but it's certainly a statement at Big Canoe. So it's a good, wonderful problem, but we do have 18 holes, so we're gonna be watching that really closely this summer. Wellness made up some ground compared to where we have been running. My hope, of course, is now that we've gone back to mask-free, mask-optional days, several days a week in the fitness center. Steve tells us the phone is ringing off the hook. We're going to look at trying to get some online reservation systems set up there as well, similar to what we have for booking a tee time or booking a boat at the marina, just to reduce the workload on the phone. So it's not because he doesn't want to talk to you. Keep calling. He'll get to you. He calls everybody back. Promise. Racket Club, basically on plan. Same with Swim. Marina, we gave John a very, very aggressive plan for 2020 or 2021 because he did so well in 2020. That's what happens when you do really well. You get a more aggressive plan. And 2 months in a row, he continues to do very strong on the marina. So far, so good there. And so total net income is 65,523 to the good versus budget, and year to date 100,000 positive on the amenities. So we're extremely happy. As we always say, 2 months does not make a trend, but it's a good way to start the year. Next slide. If you look at food and beverage key metrics, as you all know, this is probably the area that gets single most attention from all of us. Every single week, if not every day, actually. If you look at February results on actuals, cost of sale is right where we want it to be at 34%. I'll jump down to operating costs at 15% versus 16 on the budget. Turns into a cost per sales dollar of $1.26 versus a budget of $1.72, and compared to where we were last year, $1.75. So we continue to do a great job of managing waste, of managing inventory, of really watching our labor. We'll talk a little bit more about labor in a second. And that's paying dividends, all the while definitely increasing the quality of the food, the service, the plating, consistency. Like we said last week when we went through the survey results, we're not hitting a home run yet, but all the metrics are pointing in the right direction, so that's good. So then you look at payroll costs, and you're like, oh my gosh, what the heck happened here? How did we underrun budget so much on payroll? And that's kind of a good thing, but kind of like an alarming thing if you don't understand what happened. So one of the board members asked me, was that due to efficiency? Was that due to difficulty in hiring? Or was that due to good strategic thinking of making changes in your labor profile? And the answer is yes. It's all three of those things. So clearly, we made some efficiency changes. We combined a few positions in the overall organization of Big Canoe, combined a couple jobs together, and that saved us some money that we had not anticipated doing when we did the budget last October. We clearly had several positions which have taken longer to hire, but have now been hired. So the good news is we need these people. We wanted them a month earlier than we got them, but we got them. So things are just, the unemployment situation with all of the CARES Act that keeps getting extended and the extra unemployment things. Every business owner I know, everywhere. Swanee here, Alpharetta, whatever, everybody is just struggling madly for employees, and we're no different than that. And it's not because, oh, we're a Big Canoe, we're in the mountains or whatever. It's just hard to hire people, period. So that also happened. And then the other thing is Robert made some strategic decisions to say, well, given what we had booked for banquets in the month of February, and given the volume that we had on a la carte dining, we could move a few of our banquet staff positions out further and say, we'll need them in April, but we don't need them yet. So let's use the serving staff that we have to handle some of those functions. And so we did that also. So just so you guys know, we literally, our controller, Matt, he sends us a report weekly that details our budget, and for salary, for hourly, for all of our positions down to line cooks, banquet chef, servers. What did we say as a percent of sales we were going to run? What are we running? What are the actual dollars? We look at that stuff weekly because we don't ever want that line to get out of control, because that's what killed us back in 2019. So there's good reasons for all that. You won't see that wonderful sort of trend continue. We'll have some underrun, I think, in payroll in March, but shouldn't see it much longer than that, as long as we can keep bringing in the people that we're planning on bringing. So bottom line, food and beverage net income was a negative 23,456 compared to a budget of 57,064. So we like to see that again as the start of the year. Next slide. February financials. So this is the overall financial summary for Big Canoe. General operating revenue was 11,235 to the good. And year to date, that's a $24,000 positive variance. And if you compare it to last February, about flat, which is where it should be, because that's pretty predictable revenue. We shouldn't expect to see general operating revenue have wide swings or anything like that. Operating expenses are 37,000 to the good. It's really made up of about three things. One is our submittal fees for the AEC continue to run over budget, because we're doing a tremendous amount of new home starts. And when you see Phil's sales report, you'll see why. So that continues to exceed the number of closings, the number of housing starts, the number of lots sold, definitely higher than our expectations were when we built the budget. We also have 3 FTEs. We talked about food and beverage. We have 3 FTEs that were light on public works. We need to hire those people. It's maddeningly hard right now. Those are probably the hardest positions we're finding at the moment. So if anybody knows how to drive a Caterpillar or backhoe or anything like that and has free time, I can put you in touch with the right guys, because we need you. And the problem is, if we defer that much longer, then you will start to see things like ditches aren't being cleaned out when they should be, or culverts are, as we start to get into spring and our activity is ramping up more and more, we definitely need those folks. So that's not a happy situation to be down 3 FTEs in public works. Public safety also underran payroll a little bit. That's largely due to a Georgia State unemployment insurance credit that we got back. It's not really, we're pretty good staffing wise there. That one doesn't really worry me right now like public works does. Depreciation a little bit worse than the original schedule we put in place, but net, the net income from operations is 105,000 to the good in the month of February. Year to date, 176 to the good. So I'm really happy with that, because I think we continue to deliver good service, and we're not deferring anything yet that worries me at all. And people seem to be enjoying the things that we're offering with all the amenities, and yet we've built a little bit of a cushion going into the rest of the year, and that's good. So I'll take it. March amenity revenue. So how are we doing partway through the month of March? Was February just an anomaly? And the answer is no. We continue to do well on our revenue compared to budget. Both Clubhouse and especially golf are well ahead of plan again, halfway through the month of March. And actually, everybody's tracking good. Wellness Center, again, I think people are starting to come back a little bit. Please come back. There's no penalty. We miss you. Please come back. Marina, obviously, again, they continue to deliver, even though they have pretty challenging goals. So amenities so far through the month, halfway through, are 28,703 to the good. That's a 17.5% variance in the positive direction. So that's great. Next and final slide. So if you look at the balance sheet here, if we look at the operating cash, up a little bit, at 2.9 at the end of January versus end of February at 3.1. Board designated master plan, you actually see a little decrease. That's good. 1.9 down to 1.8, and we're starting to spend money on Creek. So that's totally planned. That's what we built that fund for a year ago with our $25 and with our new CCF fund. So a lot of activity happening on Creek Golf Course right now. And then the Capital Reserve Fund continues to build. We are definitely planning on spending the capital that we have budgeted this year, and don't want to see that underrun, because underrunning capital means we're deferring stuff, and that's not a good thing either. So total cash is 8.8 versus where we were at 8.6. So we're still very, very healthy from that standpoint. Go down to liabilities. Long-term debt continues to shrink, as it should, as we continue to pay off our note. Debt to equity ratio still looks strong as ever at 0.21, and operating cash ratio says that we are definitely funding our liabilities with our operating cash flow, and it's over 1, which is clearly where we want it to stay. So that kind of concludes the financial report for the month of February.
Scott, thanks. And before Phil moves into his sales report, I'd like to announce Phil and his spouse, Libby, will be leaving Big Canoe and moving to Pawleys Island to make their primary residence there. Phil has been a member of the board for nearly 3 years and on the advisory board of Leadership Big Canoe for multiple years. And his contribution to the Big Canoe community will certainly be missed. However, he and Libby have family members on the coast that will undoubtedly appreciate their proximity to them going forward. So that's Scott with Phil. If you have anything else you would like to say before you begin the sales report, you're welcome to do so.
Well, we have family here as well, Candace, and we will be coming back regularly. We looked at buying a little tree topper or a buck skull or a condo to have a presence, and they said, you don't need to do that. You have a beach house, we have a mountain house, and now we have both. So we'll be going back and forth. But we continue to have an incredible real estate experience. Real estate in Big Canoe is red hot. The market is moving very quick. Sales are happening in days, in some cases, if not hours. As of today, we have 19 listings in First Multi-List and Big Canoe. There are no tree toppers, no condos, or no buck skull hollows. So very few entry-level homes are available. And when they do hit the market, they sell literally in days or hours. The lowest listing today in Big Canoe is at $365,000, and the most expensive listing, and there are a couple in this range, at $1,300,000. Listings are down from 20 in February, by 19. They've been running in the 20 up to last May. The top was 123 homes listed for sale. And I remember when I came here 8 years ago, my gosh, it was 300 listings at a time. So it continues to change. There are 128 lots listed currently in Big Canoe today. That's down a bit from 137 last month. Several lots have sold, and prices are starting at $4,000 for an entry-level lot, what we call an amenity lot, up to a maximum of $359,900 over on Lake Pettit, the one lot that faces the lake. 62 lots have closed in the last 12 months. Lots are getting more activity as there are fewer homes available to purchase. So more people that have been kicking tires at Big Canoe are starting to buy lots, and the builders are busy. 9 homes are under contract right now. 27 additional homes are under contract and in various stages of due diligence or home inspections or financing applied for. So that's a total of 36 homes under contract. 164 homes have closed in the last 6 months. And Scott, are you ready for this number? 365 homes have sold in Big Canoe and closed in the last 12 months. That's amazing. Our goal for this year, we're thinking 200. I think it's going to be much better than that. Around 20 new homes are under construction. The builders are very busy. Now the average construction cost has steadily risen up to about $175 per square foot, plus the cost of the lot. So the average home price in Big Canoe right now for a 3,000 to 3,500 square feet house, which is kind of our sweet spot, our normal that most people are building, is running between $600,000 and $750,000. Prices are up 20 to 30% over the last few years, with an average in Big Canoe at around $450,000 if you consider all the homes right now selling. It's not unusual at all for a $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 home to sell in a day with multiple offers. We had one last week that a client wanted to see, and there were 3 offers in the same day, and it sold for about $20,000 over asking price. So while that's good news, it's also difficult for people that are looking. They're watching the listings every day, and I tell them, if you see something you like, come up here quickly because we got to get an offer in or it'll be gone. So the market continues to be very good, but we need some more inventory. So just keep that in mind.
Okay.
Thanks, Candace.
Oh, thank you, Phil. We'll open up the business section with the approval of the February minutes, and if I could have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Okay, second,
Second.
and all in favor.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. The second is also a motion to approve the audit and risk insurance revised charter. And again, if I could have a motion to approve, or motion for a vote, excuse me, and a
Aye.
second.
So motion. So move.
All in favor? Approve.
Aye.
Don't think anybody.
I'll say.
Thank you. Okay. Next on our agenda is Philip Legg, as chair of the Water Committee, presenting an update to us regarding Utilities Inc.'s work over the last year.
All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for allowing the Water Committee to be represented today. I'd just like to give you a overview of what's going on, sort of the state of the state with Big Canoe Water, Sewer, and our relationship with Utilities Inc. of Georgia. If you go to the next slide, please. I'm going to talk about 6 things today. One is a very brief background of how we got to where we are today with Utilities Inc. of Georgia, just a review for some new homeowners that may not be aware of this history. What we've done on capital spending and improvements, general overview of performance to date by Utilities Inc. of Georgia, our water and sewer rates, kind of a primer on how to connect with Utilities Inc. of Georgia, and then just to go over where documents and information is housed on the POA website so that property owners can get good access to that. The next slide, please. First is a bit of background with UIG, and I will go through this pretty quickly. Utilities Inc. of Georgia acquired Big Canoe Water and Sewer from Big Canoe Utilities in 2018. Prior to that sale in 1984, the Georgia Department of Revenue required a trust deed that would establish Big Canoe Utilities as a non-government provider of services. The language in that document, unfortunately, was not very specific on how that was to be done. Really, sort of the guiding principle was to maintain the system at all times in good order and repair. As you can imagine, that was a wide variance in interpretation. In 2017, Big Canoe Utilities announced that they were planning to sell our water and sewer systems to a third party, which they are entitled to do because of the trust deed. But the POA at that time, because of the mismanagement of the system by Big Canoe Utilities, didn't want that to happen. They didn't want our water and sewer in the hands of a third party that we weren't familiar with. So the POA filed a lawsuit against Big Canoe Utilities to stop that sale. During that time, there were frequent outages in the community. Pressure losses were rampant. There was literally no control of the POA over capital spending or how rates were determined. And believe it or not, there was no provision by the POA to even inspect the water and sewer systems on our own property. Concurrent with that time, the POA looked at selling our water and sewer to both Etowah Water and Sewer and Pickens County. Both of those entities took a look at our systems, but politely declined the purchase. The POA at that time said, well, possibly we can own and manage our own utility. But in order to do that, we would have to create a water authority as required by the Georgia State Legislature. And that authority's board would have to be appointed by Pickens and Dawson County Commission. So we would be back in the same place again with little or no control over our own facilities. So the POA decided at that time we weren't going to be able to sell it to a public utility, and we didn't want to manage our own because of the difficulty legally, and then two, because of the large capital expense that we would have to invest in the property to bring it up to speed. The good news is that the candidate that Big Canoe Utilities identified at the time was Utilities, Inc. of Georgia. And the POA got in the business of vetting UIG and was very pleased with what they found. The POA visited some sites here in Georgia and Skidaway Island and the orchards in Cleveland, Georgia, to look at those properties managed by UIG. They also had phone interviews with a couple of properties in North Carolina, also managed by UIG. As a sidebar, they looked at UIG and its parent company, Corix, and found that between the two, they were managing just under 1,000 utilities in the United States and Canada. And then the group that was responsible for Big Canoe was responsible for 60 utilities in Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee. So we felt like we had a good partner here and moved forward with that. In order to protect both entities, a service level operating agreement was drafted up. And it did a couple of things. It required that Utilities, Inc. of Georgia meet over a period of 5 years consistently some key performance indicators. It guaranteed that they would spend just under $9 million on facilities and equipment over a 5-year period. And it gave specific criteria for establishing and calculating rates that Big Canoe POA would have visibility and participate in. As a result of this, if Utilities, Inc. of Georgia met these criteria, then the trust deed would be dissolved. And that is what has happened here in the property. Let's move to the next slide, please. So to net this out, they agreed to spend just under $9 million over 5 years, with the primary goal that we would improve the system reliability, which was the main complaint in the community, and at the same time stop the excessive water loss that we were experiencing in this community. Also, we have found, and UIG has been diligent to spend the capital in a good way and attacking and dealing with the most important issues first, which is what they have done. Next slide, please. So just a little bit about the capital improvements that we've seen so far. Since 2018, 2,760 residential water meters have been replaced. Each of these is equipped with telemetry so that they can track in real time water usage and leaks. It also gives UIG the accurate capability for billing. And of course, that results in accurate revenue collection that's supposed to. Also, these devices sync up with the apps that can be downloaded to your smart devices, Eye on Water and My Utility Connect. That way you can see in real time your water usage. You can see if there's a leak, you can pay your bill, or you can communicate directly with UIG. And next slide, please. Also, over the last 3 years, since 2018, UIG has replaced 70 pressure reducing valves in the property. Again, these are equipped with telemetry so that we can find out what's going on in the community at all times. This is a key part in preventing the leaks that we're seeing in the service lines from the mains to each residential water meter. So if we can control pressure, then we can reduce the number of leaks and the number of repairs. Next slide. Since 2018, we've replaced 596 service lines. These are the lines going from the main to the residential water meters. And this is, of course, a key factor in reducing our overall water loss. I mentioned the key performance indicators just a minute ago. We have recently come to an agreement with UIG that they will proactively inspect our underground plumbing system during the course of every year so that they can go after leaks rather than wait until a leak is reported. So we feel that this is going to have a great result over time for us. Next slide. We've also replaced 600 feet of waterline mains since 2018. And again, this attacks a huge problem that we have with water loss. Also, we've acquired several backup generators that we can move around the property so that when the power goes out in the big Canoe community, we don't also lose water distribution as a result. So that's another backup. The next slide, please. So how has UIG done over the last couple of years? I've been on the water committee for a little over a year. I've found them to be very professional, very transparent in how they do business. We've had great access to their personnel, great access to data. You know, if we ask for something, we get it. There are still challenges to overcome. And those are three of the main ones. Is timely response to property owners' inquiries. I think we owe owners, if they call about a leak, if they call about a bill, that UIG should get back to them, and we are doing a much better job of that now than we were 3 years ago. Potholes are still there. That is a function of these service line replacements. What we have done, though, since August of 2020 is rather than the normal protocol, dig up the street, make the repair, fill it with gravel, and leave the site. We've implemented what's referred to as a cold patch. We can't do this in every situation, but in most situations, when the contractors do a repair, fill the hole with gravel, they will also at the same time do the cold patch. So that's a temporary fix, so we're not dealing with the mud and the gravel all over the road. And then the third thing is notifications of outages. We've worked really hard on this, and I think probably the biggest change that we've made is alerting homeowners when they have a particular problem. This was a pet peeve of mine. I don't want to know about a problem that somebody else is having, not because I don't care, just because I want to know when it's my problem. So we have made some changes in the way UIG does this work, so that they're giving specificity to where the problem is and alerting the homeowners of their specific problems. Water committee initiatives in the last year. We've developed a comprehensive communications protocol. This was a result of a major water outage where there was quite a bit of delay between when UIG knew that there was a problem, when the POA knew there was a problem. So now we have a real-time connectivity 24/7, 365 days a year, so that the POA can let UIG know if there's a problem, in the reverse direction if UIG finds out first and can let the POA know, so that each entity can mobilize their troops to take action. There have been some complaints about calling either the local number, the 706 or the 855 number. I won't say that in every case this happens, but in most instances, if you call either one of those numbers, day or night, you will be able to talk to a live person. In the last couple of months, the Water Committee has initiated what we call a field activities report that UIG produces for us. We're all aware that there's a billing complaint, there's a leak complaint, there's an outage complaint. There are roughly 22 categories of issues that come about from time to time with homeowners. What this report does is track the monthly frequency of each one of these types of calls so that the Water Committee can spot trends, not only what's happening, how many times it's happening, but now we can see in what area of the community that they are happening. And then the final item on our committee initiatives is we've talked about the key performance indicators that are part of the service level operating agreement. We have tweaked those here in the last couple of months. It gives us a little bit better management of UIG, gives them achievable results that are really business oriented types of goals rather than things that are just simply punitive. So we feel very good that we are in a position to manage UIG and communicate with UIG as a result of these KPIs. Next slide, please. Okay, let's talk about water and sewer rates. There are 4 primary drivers of rates in our community. Capital spending to make repairs to equipment and facilities, the ongoing operations of the water plant and personnel that are related to UIG on our property, yet to be repaired leaks in our water system that's the result of water loss in our community, those 3 to the negative. And on the positive side, of course, is revenue collected from property owners. By far and away, capital spending has the greatest impact on our rates. Over the next 3 years, 21 through 23, we're going to spend $2.1 million, $1.8 million, and $1.5 million respectively. I believe we spent $1.8 million in 2020. So we're up about 11% for this year on our capital spending. The rate calculation, I hope I can take some of the mystery out of that. As a result of our service level operating agreement with Big Canoe Utilities, they require, and we've agreed to, a 12% after-tax return on the net book value of our assets, or of the assets of the water and sewer. Currently, our assets are at around $15 million. So when you run that math, during the course of 2020, we had a shortfall of about $309,000, $310,000 in 2020. When you go through the process of evaluating that across different types of usage between water and sewer, it's going to result in a 7.79% increase in water and in sewer that will be implemented in May 1st and will result in billing changes in June of this year. What that means to the average residential bill, it will increase to about $107. And then the average residential bill for sewer will increase to about $83 per month. Next slide, please. One of the things that we hear frequently from property owners is, how do I connect to UIG? I don't know how to get information, don't know where to go, don't know who to call. And we've sent out many notifications through email blast from the POA and from UIG, but this continues to be a bit of an issue getting the information to homeowners. And the best way to get information about what's going on with your property and what's going on with UIG are 2 apps, downloadable apps to your smart device. The first is My Utility Connect, and the other is Eye on Water. With both of these devices, you can see what your water consumption is. You can detect if you have a leak. You can pay your bill online, or you can communicate directly with UIG through the app. With the conventional means, there's 2 phone numbers, the 706 number for local and the after hours number of the 855 number that goes to a call center. And of course, there's always email bigcanoe@uiwater.com. Next slide, please. I think one of the things that we've tried really hard to do is to put documents together so that we can, track our history with Utilities Inc., track our meeting agendas, track videos and that sort of thing. And that there's always some angst in where are they? How do I find them? These are housed on the Big Canoe POA website, bigcanoepoa.org. When you open that up, if you'll go to the POA banner at the top, hover over that, and a scroll down menu will appear. You'll go down to meetings. Next slide, please. And when you open up meetings, you can go to board documents. There you can see water committee meetings. You can see the trust deed. You can see the service level operating agreement. Or if you click the video tab there by the green arrow, it will show last year's meetings. That's not showing up on my screen where that is, but video conference meetings that we've had with town halls and POA board meetings that are available by video on this site. Okay, let's move to the next slide, please. That pretty much concludes any questions for the Water Committee or for me specifically.
Hey, Phil, this is Regis Walensky. Question for you. You mentioned when you were going through how rates are calculated, you had mentioned the largest driver of rates is capital spending. And understanding that Utilities Inc. took over a pretty decrepit water system, which required a great deal of capital spending. At this point, hopefully that may be tapering off. So there's really two questions. Do you see that flattening out? And number two, do we have any means of justifying their capital, that the capital dollars, since they're driving our rates, that we have any way to judge whether that is money well spent?
Yeah, there is a published list of capital expenditures for the year. And, some of it is pretty obvious when you look at replacing PRVs, when you look at replacing meters, if you look at refurbishing or replacing a tank there on Deer Run Wood. These are things that just can't wait. And that's true to some degree of our facilities. It's going to be true of our sewer plant in the future. So, I hope this doesn't sound trite, but this is a result of roughly 50 years of deferred maintenance. And I will say, just my personal experience having dealt with UIG, I don't get the sense ever that they're trying to pull the rug over our eyes or spend money capriciously. We got enough problems that homeowners are letting us know about where it requires capital expenditure to remediate. So I think it's money well spent, and it's urgent, it's necessary, and it's reasonable. Will it taper off in the future? Yes, we believe it will. Through 2023, though, we're going to see some pretty healthy capital expenditure. My CPAs will say that it can't be as simple as this, but just as a rule of thumb, for every dollar we spend in capital, we've got to find a way to make up 12 cents to give them their return. And we can't offset that necessarily with making up leaked water, or we can't expect more revenue to come in from property owners. There are things that affect the rates. The water consumption during the course of the year affects the rate. Seasonality, if it's hot or cold, people are watering their yards or they're not. So those affect it. But as long as we're spending capital, there's not a whole lot of ways we can offset that.
Patel, did you have a question?
I just real quick, I'd never heard the term, what is a cold patch that we're using on the potholes?
Yeah, it's a composite material that looks like asphalt. It's not designed to be temporary, but it's packed in place doesn't have to be heated like a hotbed of asphalt. It just be camped in place, and it's good enough to get us through when the real deal can be done, where they have to saw out those holes, make good square corners, and put in an asphalt fix.
Good, thanks.
I will say on rates too that since this is an after-tax return, that the feds are toying around with the corporate tax rate as we speak. So if that is implemented, and we think that might be from 21 to 28%, that will drive potentially our rates in the future. So it's just something to be mindful of that we can't avoid right now.
One thing I wanted to mention was it was really notable the difference in the high dollar volume gallon usage last year over the year before, because if you remember in 2019, we had a pretty prolonged drought there leading right up to the middle of October. It was hot and it was dry and people were using a lot of water in their landscaping. And of course, this year that was not the case at all. And it was very noticeable. Unfortunately, that translates into a whole lot of revenue that didn't happen. So it's the good news and the bad news.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Philip. Any other questions from the board?
Phil, I just want to thank you so much for all the work you guys have done on this presentation, everything you did last year, and a lot of work is still ongoing because you all are still working on the details, everything under the hood on the rate calculation. If last year was a good example, there probably won't be a material change in anything that we find after their audited statements come out. There wasn't last year, but we'll look forward to hearing from you when that happens. Just for the community, an e-blast will go out probably tomorrow with a smaller synopsis of this and indicating where people can go to get more information. And UIG has a formal rate notice letter that will be attached to that. One last thing, we'll come back to, if you all remember, we spoke in a previous meeting about the KPIs, getting really serious about nailing those down. They've not been nailed down and agreed to on both sides yet, so we're still working on that. But the board and the community will be hearing a little bit more about that later.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Ann. Great job.
Thank you. We've got two more items in our business section this evening. Before we open up to any Q&A, and one is approving the funding for the postal package facility. This was discussed at a board meeting on Monday, and what this represents is the renovations required to allow the lower level of the village station to receive and dispense packages that have made the challenges in the regular postal facility much greater over the last couple of years. So this cost is approximately $41,000 with a 15% contingency that may be required if we have to subcontract any of the work. But the funding includes a hydraulic lift, a ramp, a guardrail, some reconfiguration of space, and expanding the parking space. And this was presented to us by Anu Saxena, who is one of our new residents and a professional engineer, along with Jason Brunel. They also introduced in this project management software, which will be used going forward for all of our public works projects. So again, the cost is $41,000 with a 15% contingency. And the reason this is coming up for board approval is that this project was initially budgeted in the master plan for 2021, but the master plan was never approved, and consequently it's considered unbudgeted. And based on our current policies and procedures 153, any item in excess of $25,000 requires board approval. So we again agreed this was certainly a much needed and efficient way to go about making enhancements. And I'd like to make a motion for a vote.
Also moved.
Okay, and a second.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
No, time to get on with it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any negative? Negative, okay. The funds are available. Scott, do you know about your best estimate at this point in time? And I know that I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but a best estimate of when the improvements may be completed.
The project plan calls for that to be running by Memorial Day is our target to open that facility. That depends a little bit on staffing, as we talked about. That is an incremental headcount as well. So we are moving to begin recruiting for that position while Jason is renovating the building. So
Okay.
that's our target.
Okay. The last item is an item that was discussed and presented to us in our Monday meeting. And because it has received a lot of discussion, we wanted to summarize where the board is with the decision. Earlier this year, the board heard and denied an appeal for a variance to install a primary standing seam metal roof, which had been previously denied by the AECC. The board requested at that time for the request to go back to the AECC to revisit whether AEC standards should be changed to allow that style primary metal roof product. In early March, the same property owner did a thorough presentation to the AECC on today's higher quality products, and the pros and cons of standing seam roofs were debated by the committee. A 4-to-1 vote, the AEC committee maintained its February 2nd decision to keep the existing standard for primary roof materials as the approved metal roofing. Color-specific Girard systems of metal shingles and shakes is included currently in the metal roofing. Also included is hand-split wood shakes, wood shingles, or color-specific architectural shingles, and then color-specific standing seam metals for secondary roofing. So earlier this week, a synopsis of the committee's review was presented to the board, which reaffirmed their decision, the AEC, not to change the current standards. The primary metal roof style that harmonizes with over 2,700 existing homes in Big Canoe is already allowed, and architectural controls have been important to the overall aesthetics and appeal of living in Big Canoe for almost 50 years, and the board felt there was no compelling reason to change that course at this time. With that, I'd like to conclude the business section of the meeting. May I have a motion to adjourn? Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now I'll open the meeting up for any questions from property owners. Tim.
All right, we just have one call in, Karen Perkle, lot 1271. And she asks or states, I don't get some information just because there are so many emails sent every week and I need to sift through them. Is there a way to make it easier to know when the emails will be sent?
That is a fabulously timely question. So just rewinding a little bit, Leadership Big Canoe did a communications evaluation across all of our medium a year ago, and that project team presented about a year ago at this time. And I had the privilege of working with that group on that team. One of the things that came out of that effort was the whole Ask the POA functionality that I think has been pretty successful both on our website and cut down on all the crazy email traffic that was running around here when I got here in June. The other thing, there was some data that the team looked at, and it basically said, this is, I think, from Google, how can businesses improve their email efforts? 44% of the respondents said less frequent would be good. Exactly what Karen just said, basically. And also why subscribers end up flagging emails as spam, which means they just don't pay any attention to it anymore, is 46% said emailed too often. So we've looked at our whole email scheme, and this is an idea that Tim and Mark have come up with. We're going to introduce beginning next Thursday. We're combining all of our kind of random emails, if you will, into a new online newsletter that basically is called Inside the Gates, Inside Your Inbox. And that's going to happen every single Thursday. So you'll always know on Thursday that Inside the Gates, Inside Your Inbox is going to be coming out each Thursday. And it's a really nice format in that it will let you quickly, kind of like the New York Times online, if you do that, or even to some extent Smoke Signals online, you'll be able to scan through the subjects very quickly and say, yeah, I'm not really interested in the fitness thing, and I don't really play golf. Oh, I'm really interested in trails. Click there, and then it'll take you to that article. So you have a choice really of what you read. So think of it as kind of a mini little online newspaper that's going to be coming out every single week. And that way we're not randomly bombarding the community with, oh, here's 2 thoughts here and 3 thoughts here and 2 thoughts over here. And you're like, wait a minute, did I read that email before? I thought I got something from the POA. There's just too many. It's too complicated. It's also good for my staff because quite frankly, it forces everybody to say, hey, we got to get the information to Tim and to Mark, you know, every single week by Tuesday. And that way there's no last minute fire drills like, oh, we're closing the clubhouse on this day, whatever, you know. So it's good for us too. It's good discipline. So that is, again, Inside the Gates, Inside Your Inbox. It's going to be starting next Thursday. So the standalone emails now will be reserved for really important things. So if there's a road closure, if there's a weather alert, if there's, you know, some new, you know, a CCF vote, a Creek 9 vote, those kind of things will still be standalone emails. But everything else around here that's not kind of mission critical, we're going to package that together into Inside the Gates. So that is our kind of long answer to your short question. And I think it's going to be fun, and I think it's going to be really successful. So look for that starting next week.
Hey, Scott, I forgot to remind everyone that our census will be going out. And is that
tomorrow? So that is one that is mission critical. That's still important enough to have a standalone email. And since we're not starting the Inside the Gates, Inside Your Inbox until next Thursday, probably get one more email tomorrow that has, like, for example, the water information that Amy was talking about. We'll have that in there as well. But the census will have its own email coming tomorrow afternoon. That is so important to us. You know, we went through the property owner satisfaction surveys last week. We use that totally in working on our operations. Where do we need to improve? But Regis's strategic planning team that Rich McLeod is leading for us, they are so hungry for information on how have the demographics of Big Canoe changed versus the last time we did a census in 2018 versus the last time before that in 2015. So please take the time. It's easy. It's a little Survey Monkey thing. Takes all of 4 or 5 minutes. I did it the other day. Take the time to click on that over the weekend and get those results back. And that way we can clearly, use that in the planning of our strategic plan, because it's really important to see how we're changing as a community. So,
right.
Tomorrow.
Thank you. Tim, any other questions?
Oh, thank you, Candace. That wraps up the questions from the audience.
Okay, well, thank you. Good evening.